Well, today we have a special guest. I've teased this episode before whenever I was talking to Lael. So why don't you just introduce yourself real quick? Tell us who you are, how old you are, and where you live.
I'm Alana Rose Parent. I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm 16 years old, and I live in Anchorage, Alaska.
And you just turned 16, I think.
I
Recently?
did. I turned 16 4 weeks ago.
Yeah. So some people might be wondering why I'm talking to a 16-year-old on a bikepacking podcast. I knew about you from Lael, but then you also made the news recently. There was some social media floating around. Why don't you tell us what maybe you're most well known for?
The big thing is, there's not a lot of teenagers that are riding their bike solo, and someone sent it into a local news station. Hey, look at this. Started at 14, riding her bike solo over 1,000 miles across Alaska by herself at 14. And I'm still not sure who sent it into the news, but the news was like, whoa, that's super cool. Why didn't we know about that at the time?
Right.
And they wanted to do an interview about it in October. So I did an interview with them, and it started catching a lot more attention than I thought it would, because I didn't really think very much of it. So I didn't really tell many people about it, but a lot of people started messaging me, and they're like, hey, it's super cool what you're doing. Can't believe we didn't find out about this sooner. You're 16 now, but you're still wanting to do all these really cool trips, and you're still riding solo.
Right. Yeah, and I was one of those people that reached out to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. How did you not comprehend how impressive what you're doing and how unusual it is? Did you have any sense of that when you were doing it?
I had sense of that. I have a lot of people give me crap about it. They're like, well, you're stupid. You're a female riding by yourself at 14. Legally, in most states, I cannot rent a campground by myself because I'm under the age of 18. So it can make it very difficult to go on these trips. But a lot of the criticism that I was getting was just, well, you shouldn't be doing this. You're not responsible. And I'm very, very responsible for my age. I had to grow up pretty fast. I've always been more responsible than any of the kids in my grade. I'm very good at managing money and taking care of myself. So that definitely made these trips easier for me to do. And I've never really had any issues on any of them.
Yeah. So is that how you respond to people when they, throw out all the reasons why you shouldn't? Or how do you deal with that?
I'm not your typical teenager, at all. Most teenagers are not doing what I'm doing, and they're not as responsible as I am. And I kind of explained that to people. Then also, this is my passion. Why are you going to stop someone from doing their passion if their passion is something that makes them a better person?
Yeah. Hey, preach. I love it. What did your parents say? I mean, you're 14. I have a 10-year-old daughter, so I'm 4 years away from where you were, right? And I'm thinking about my little girl going out, and not that I would stop her, but as a father, I would probably have some concerns and want to have some conversations about it and, talk it through.
It kind of really drives my parents crazy and makes them super paranoid. I always, when I'm not going to be anywhere with cell service, I have a sat phone, and they have the number, and they're able to contact it whenever. My mom was definitely very nervous, but Lael did a super good job of hey, it's gonna be okay. Nobody's going to get hurt. You saw how well she did when she was in middle school riding bikes with me, which I met Lael through the Girls Riding Into Tomorrow program, GRIT Anchorage, when I was in 7th grade. And that's kind of what started all of this. I blame it on her. She's the one who made me the person I am today.
There's a lot of people that she's influenced, me being one of them. I mean, she's one of my biggest idols or people that I look up to, So getting to interview her and becoming friends with her has been really neat. But she's definitely a very inspiring and encouraging person, She's not she's like, you can do it. You really can do it. And that's special. So I do want to go back and talk about so how did you get interested or even know about bike packing at the age of 14? I mean, that's not what most, I think, 14-year-old girls are doing, right? So how did that come on your radar?
That is definitely not what most 14-year-old girls are thinking of. We did a 3-day bike packing trip with the GRIT program, which was really challenging, but I liked it then, but didn't really have the resources to do it on my own. And then a few months later.
Back up real quick. And so, but did you hear about GRIT and you're like, oh, I want to do that? Or how did you even find out about it?
No. So Lael, Wilcox, and Kate Rodriguez, the two starters of GRIT, they wanted to get 6 girls from Stellar Secondary School and 6 girls from Baggage Middle School. And Stellar is 7th through 12th grade, and they were trying to find kids at Stellar that were interested and kids that would benefit greatly from the program. And I was one of the kids where they're like, this child is definitely going to benefit from this program. I had never really even had a bike at all before doing GRIT. Wow. I was just never able to afford one and really learn how to ride one. And then I did GRIT, which was really, really fun. I really connected well with Kate and Lael. And at the end of the GRIT program, you do a 3-day trip that is a total of 60 miles, carrying all your gear yourself other than food. And we did that, and I really liked that, but I didn't have the resources to do it. So I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe it's something I'll be interested in when I'm an adult and can afford that gear.
Yeah.
A few months later, Lael she's offering a Riding Alaska scholarship to women that would like to enter. The requirements were you had to come up with a 1,000-mile bike ride across Alaska, but if you won, you would get 10,000 Alaska Airlines miles, all the gear and supplies that you needed to do it, and money to do it as well. And I didn't win the full scholarship, but everybody was just so impressed that a 14-year-old applied for the scholarship that She did help me get all of the gear together and to do the trip that I wanted to do, which was ride from Cantwell, which is a very small town right outside of Denali National Park, all the way up to Coldfoot, which has a population of 4 and is 250 miles away from Prudhoe Bay, which is at the top of the state, back to Anchorage.
Wow. So cold?
The first night that I was out there, I was camping in Cantwell, and it got down to 31 degrees and it snowed, and I was in a 35-degree bag.
Welcome to bike packing.
That was really bad, especially waking up with a gravel bike and there's snow on the ground. Good thing it was only half an inch of snow, but it was still like, oh, I'm not prepared for this. I am shorts,
that was night one.
It was supposed to be hot out.
So at that moment, you're like, what am I doing out here? What was going through your head?
I was just like, I am crazy for doing this. Why did I ever want to do this? But then you get riding and it was fine. But then also that day there was super, super strong headwinds. And I was like, well, I guess I'll make it. And then 3 days later, I'm biking to Nenana and it's 60 degrees out. That's pretty hot for Alaska and bike touring. And that was a really good day. Next day, there's over 6,000 feet of climbing, and it's 75 degrees out. And suddenly it's like, oh, it's way too hot. And it's in the mountains, so there's not a lot of water. And I was getting really, really dehydrated that day, and I felt really bad, but I loved it. There was something about it that was like, I cannot quit. This is so much fun. And I think the big part of that is I love all the views and amazing animals and stuff that I get to see when I'm on a bike, because you see a lot more going 10 to 14 miles per hour than you do going 60, 70 miles per hour. So
Yeah, and at 10 or 14, you're going a lot faster than if you're hiking or walking or whatever. So it's a happy
Mm-hmm.
mix. And with a bike, you can sneak up on all kinds of wildlife. They don't even know you're there.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, you're just like, a deer or whatever it is. That's one of my favorite parts too. I love all the
Yeah.
views and the wildlife and just being away. So that first trip was 1,000. No, not the first trip. What trip was this? So you
This
did
was
the
my
one with,
Alaska trip.
but what
When
number? So you did a grit trip and you did
I
60
did the
miles. And then after that, did you just jump right into the 1,000 or did you do some training up to that?
Okay. So I don't really count my grip trip as like my first bike packing trip because it wasn't like hardcore bike packing. Like it's definitely what got me hooked on bike packing, but I count my first solo trip, which was my 1,000 miles across Alaska, which it was 1,019 miles. And 13 days of it, there was no cell service. And for 2 of those days, I did not see anybody.
Wow.
No cars, no nothing, no animals even. It was just like open land and a very horribly maintained gravel road.
So was anybody tracking? Did you have a tracker on you so your dad and mom could
I had a Garmin tracker, and my dad was like being a pilot car for part of the trip just because my parents were like, maybe we shouldn't let our 14-year-old go
right.
out by herself on the haul road where all it is truckers and maybe 5 tourists to every season.
That haul road, aren't there like TV shows about it? Like Ice
Yeah.
Road Truckers, isn't that on that road?
I think that's on the Alcan, but there is one TV show on the Haul Road because it's a part of like the top 10 most dangerous roads in the
Right.
US.
Yeah.
Like that road is very sketchy, but it's a lot of fun to bike on.
Why?
uh I it's just open land. Like I know during August when the caribou are going through there, I think that would be so cool to go in August, even though it would be quite cold. Because it snows up there in August and September. But I think it'd be just great to see all of the caribou herds just joining up there in these huge valleys. And there's a lot of ptarmigan up there, which they're really cool to see just doing their own thing as well.
Oh well.
And the weather was quite nice. It was in the 50s, which is a little bit cooler, but I really liked it.
So how many days did it take you to complete the whole thing?
23 days, I believe.
What was the hardest day? Do you have a day where you were just like thinking about packing it in and calling dad and saying, "Hey, come get me. I'm over. I'm done."
Um, there was one day where I was biking on the Parks Highway, which is from Anchorage to Fairbanks. Fairbanks, the second largest city in Alaska, and there's semi decent shoulder. Like I would prefer something a little bit wider, but it was pouring rain. It was the second to last day of my trip. I was riding right outside of Willow, which is a small mushing community in Alaska, and this one car purposely runs me off the road.
Whoa.
And it's pouring rain, and it's like, come on, dude. That's really messed up. There's enough shoulder right here. You saw me. There was
Yeah.
nobody in the other lane coming the opposite direction. And that didn't really make me want to quit the trip, but it was like, why do you have to do that? I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was following all
Right.
like rules. I wasn't in your way.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I live in a college town that's very heavily populated, and interactions with cars, unfortunately, is just a reality of riding bikes. I'm actually talking to a guy who was hit. He's cycling all the way around the world, and he just happened to get hit by a car at 70 miles an hour, like 45 minutes
Jeez.
from me. And he's starting to walk and stuff, but I'm going to interview him like in 3 days. But it's just a
Dang.
sobering reality that as cyclists, that there's cars there, and some of them just don't like us for whatever reason, and I don't know why that is.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish it wasn't that way because I'm like you. I mean, as a cyclist, we do everything we can to be visible and obey the laws. And not all of us, but hopefully most of us are doing that. And hopefully, we garner the respect of these 3-ton vehicles that are going down the highways and byways. But yeah, that's a bummer. Negative interactions with vehicles is always like a huge, just a huge bummer for me. It's like the one thing you just have like no control over. And the weather.
No.
The weather you have no control over too. But the weather's just a part of it, and you accept it and you're prepared for it and you deal with it,
Yeah, exactly. I love the weather, actually. I love not having to be stuck in a car. Like in a car, you can roll up the windows if it starts raining or snowing. Oh, I was helping out with GRIT last season as a mentor, and it was snowing one day, and I was on a very janky hardtail with no studs, and I was not prepared clothing wise, and I had to bike 11 miles, and it was one of the most miserable bike experiences I've ever had. I actually ended up in tears, which doesn't happen very often on a bike.
It gets us all eventually, trust me.
Yeah.
Everyone will cry at some point.
Yes.
All right, so let's I want to hear the rest of your trip. So where did we leave off? Like around day 3 or so? I mean, you don't have to tell us every day, but it'd be nice to get like an overview of how that trip went and some highlights maybe.
Yeah. No, so day 4 or 5, I was biking from Nenana to Fairbanks, which, like I said, is about 6,000 feet of climbing, which is, as someone who had done some training, but not really much, and it was my first real bikepacking trip, that was really, really difficult for me physically, but I made it. I think I did it in like 6 hours and 30 minutes.
How many miles?
It was 56 or 57 miles.
Wow,
that whole day. But the last 4 miles is just coming down the mountains into Fairbanks, because Fairbanks is kind of in like a dip where it's surrounded by mountains, but it's just a valley. That was fun. I don't really like going downhill very much.
Really?
To be honest, I prefer to climb.
I prefer to climb. You are a product of Lael. She's trained you well.
Yes, she has. And then basically 15 miles outside of Fairbanks, you lose all cell reception until you get to Prudhoe Bay. So that was nice, having a break from social media and everything. Just me and my music until my phone died and my spot tracker.
So how are you navigating? If your phone is down and your spot tracker you don't navigate with, but yeah, what are you using to navigate?
There's only one road.
Oh.
There's literally only one road. Alaska's road system, I think we have 7 main highways, and that's it. There's only one road that goes north.
Okay, got it. So you were on
it's pretty easy not to get lost.
Right. Okay. Well, that is actually kind of nice, because you can kind of turn that part of your brain off and just, ride, basically.
No, I rode the Pacific Coast this past summer, and that was really hard to navigate, because here I don't have to practice navigating, because there's only one road going south, one road going north. Like, it's super easy to do. But down in the States, it's crazy. There's so many different routes you can take.
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming, actually. I mean,
super, super overwhelming for someone coming from a small town with only 400,000 people. And like, I'm usually in communities where it's way less than that, especially when I'm biking. And flying into Seattle and trying to bike out of Seattle was very mentally straining, because I never have to practice navigating.
Yeah. So what were you doing in Seattle?
I was biking from Seattle to San Diego.
With some people or solo?
Solo.
Look at you. So what put that route on your radar? I mean,
So after my Alaska trip, I was like, I hate this. I don't want to do it again. Like, it's not that I hate bike packing, it's I hate being lonely. Come 3 months later, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bike from Seattle to San Diego. And my mom's like, dude, you just said that you hated that because you're doing it by yourself. And this is also going to be doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
But the way that I was thinking of it is there's so many more people there. Like every camp spot that I'm going to go to, there's going to be somebody there that I can talk to. Because I am a very, very social person. But that like worked out super, super well for me. I always had people like in coffee shops or at campgrounds. And when I wasn't biking, I was hiking, people that I could talk to, dogs that I could pet. Which you don't get as much of that here in Alaska because there's just so few people. But down there, that seemed to work out pretty well.
That is so interesting. We are the opposite, and it may be because of a product of where we live. Like, whenever I go bike packing, whenever you're talking about Alaska and you didn't see anybody for 2 days, I'm thinking that's like the best thing ever, you know? But I live in a very heavily populated, I mean, there's people hustling and bustling, and, it's just nice to get away from that. But for you, you don't have that, and so you're like, oh man, this is nice. There's people I can talk to.
Yeah, well, it's nice. Like when I'm on my bike, I'm not talking to anybody. But
Right.
when I'm off my bike, it's like, well, I want to talk to someone because I was biking all by myself for 55 miles today.
Yeah. No, I get that. I get that. And in truth, a lot of times my wife is with me. I'm lucky enough where my wife and I, we both do this kind of stuff. So I'm actually usually not doing a lot of solo stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand that. That's totally understandable. What was your favorite? I asked you what was like a bad experience on your 1,000 mile, but what was like, I don't know, a turning point or a really good experience that you walked away from, aside from the fact that you said you never wanted to do it again?
So I was biking. I was leaving Denali National Park, heading south on my way back south, and it was pouring rain, pouring rain. I had gotten charged by 2 different moose that day. And when you're on the highway system, there's nothing you can do because it's just you, a mountain, a river, and a road.
Oh my gosh.
But like after that, I was coming down this hill and it was pouring rain, but you could see the sunlight. And then you make it all the way down the hill and it's no longer pouring rain. Like it's super bright, super sunny, super hot. Very nice. That was definitely a very fun moment for me because I do enjoy riding in the rain, but it's nice to get a break. And that was a good experience for me. No,
What was it like? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you can go.
I've never been chased by a moose before. That's like those things are huge and aggressive. What happened? That's like,
usually what happens is you can't see them, or for me anyway, I can't see them, and then I pass by them, and then they start, like, they get upset, so they chase after you. There's one time where I was just riding on the trail system in Anchorage, and I saw one, but there was no way to get around it, so I just hustled, and I looked at my speedometer, and I actually got going over 19 miles per hour. But I, for some reason, have way more moose encounters than a lot of my other friends on bikes. I guess I'm just a moose magnet or something, but I've really found ways about getting out of situations like that. I would definitely be way more afraid of a bear.
right. That was my next question.
I have,
you?
Yeah. I have 2 feed bags on my bike instead of just one, and one's for bear spray and one's for snacks. So.
Okay. Have you had to use the bear spray?
I have not, actually. I've encountered a bear once, but I did not have to deploy bear spray. And I've never encountered a bear on a bike.
Wow.
I've seen bears on a bike, but always from afar. But moose, they're everywhere.
This is insane. I mean, you have just a vast amount of experience. Like, having grown up in a wild place, it's not just the people and the cars. Like, you're literally having to deal with real wildlife. Like, those are real dangers where you could be prey or just in their way and they don't like you and want to get rid of you.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely a lot more afraid of ticks than anything, which we don't have ticks in Alaska. But when I was on my Pacific Coast trip, I was in California and I was sleeping and I woke up one day. I was right outside of St. Oso, California, and I like felt something on my leg and I woke up and there was a tick and I was freaking out because ticks are my biggest fear.
Oh, they're pretty gross. Yeah, that's how you get Lyme disease.
Yeah,
They're
luckily it
nasty
didn't
little
bite
critters.
me, but it was still like really gross having it crawl on me. And thank God that's something that we don't have to deal with in Alaska, or not yet anyway.
Yeah.
And when we do have to deal with it in Anchorage, I'm moving further north because I don't want to deal with them.
So will you ever come back to the States to go bikepacking, or was that it? Yeah, you all got ticks down there. I'm not interested.
I'm coming back in March of Arizona actually to do a 5-day trip over my spring break. Cool. It's going to be a mountain biking / gravel biking touring trip. I'm going to do the Sky High Odyssey East Loop in Patagonia, Arizona, which I'm super excited about.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I actually just got back from there. I did the I can't remember what the name. Oh, Spirit World 100 there in Patagonia, Arizona. So that's crazy that I was just there. I didn't see any ticks, by the way.
I know. I'm not super worried about ticks in Arizona because it's desert, but in places where it's more green, they're everywhere.
So I don't think we ever really finished talking about your parents and how they, like, how did that conversation go? Hey, Mom and Dad, I want to go ride my bike 1,000 miles all over Alaska by myself. Like, how does that go?
They're not as supportive as I'd like them to be, but I do understand, like, just the way that they raised me. I'm basically in charge of myself and I do everything for myself. Well, I do a lot of things for other people as well, but like things like that, I'm doing that for myself. And they kind of understood that it was going to make me a better person if I did that. And that trip really, like, many people go on for years trying to figure out who they are. And that trip really just pushed it into me. This is who you are, Alana, which was really nice to experience at such a young age because I know people that are in their 20s and they're still trying to figure out who they are.
I know people in their 30s and 40s that are still trying to figure it out. I mean, that is a true gift. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And it's beautiful that it's coming from bikepacking, which is a sport or a community that I personally love very much. And I've found a lot of my own identity in it, and a lot of my, my people, my culture, my tribe. It's just a good group of people.
No, they try their best to be supportive. Like, neither of my parents are very into cycling at all. My mom works a desk job and she works for the state of Alaska, which is a lot of added stress. My dad's retired, but he's very more into like helping my brother with his hockey than he is to helping me. My parents have been split since before I was born, but they try their best to make things work. It can be super difficult sometimes, though.
So go ahead.
I'm not an easy child. It's not like I give them crap or anything. It's just like having a kid that's so independent and on their own can be very difficult because none of my siblings are really like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, as a parent, you just don't expect that your kid is going to want to ride, do these solo trips. That's not something that's on your radar for a 14-year-old girl. And so I'm sure that's been an adjustment, but kudos to them for at least not standing in your way. That I can't imagine as a parent, that's got to be tough, but also it's so amazing that you're able to have that conviction and be able to figure out, all the things that you need to do to make that happen. Like you said, you're doing this all on your own. I know that people have helped you. I know Lael's helped you out and stuff like that. But, you are creating the opportunities. You're going out there and talking to people, and you're, planning the trips, and you're doing all that stuff, which is a great thing to be focused on. I mean, there's a lot of things in this world that you could be doing or, filling your time with that don't bear the type of fruit that this does. So when you finished that first solo trip, did their attitude towards it change at all? Did they like, oh wow, she can do it?
They were happy that I was able to get home without getting mauled by a bear and not getting hit by a car. Definitely they were like, wow, like you did it. My mom didn't think I was going to be able to make it. Like, she says that she didn't say that, but I vividly remember her a week before I was about to leave. I don't think you're going to be able to make it. I don't think you've trained enough. I don't think, like, mentally you're going to be able to do this. And I did it. I feel like that's part of the reason why I was so, like, stubborn about finishing it was people keep telling me I'm not going to be able to do this or that I'm crazy for doing this. Therefore, I need to do it.
I was going to ask you that. I find that when people doubt me just in general, when someone is doubting you, it just feeds that fire, it's just fuel. And whenever things are hard and it's cold and you're wet and tired and you got to climb 6,000 feet, you remember all the negative things that people said, like, no, they said I was going to quit and I'm not going to make them right. I'm not going to quit today and prove that I can't do this, So in some way we like owe it to them, to like, I don't know, It's like on one hand, you don't want people to be negative, but on the other hand, at least for me, negative stuff can like spur me and be like, or not even negative, just doubt. If there's like doubt, the one thing that I would say is like, one thing that I've learned or try to do is like make it an internal battle of like always trying to find what my own personal limits are, like, what you can do, but go find out what you are not sure you can do, like test yourself. Do you need to go?
Yeah. No, I was just messing with my headphone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I try to like internalize it and just make it a personal thing, but I can't deny that whenever someone like doubts you, it does like push you a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So tell me about this trip you're doing in Patagonia. You said it's gonna be a 5-day trip?
4 to 5 days. I'm not doing this one solo, actually. I found someone to ride with me the entire trip, which makes me super happy. Her name's Vera. She is a lifelong Alaskan, and she works remote up here, but she's going to take 5 days off and come ride with me, so I don't have to do it by myself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Did you plan that trip?
Yes, that's actually one of the many great things to come from me doing these bikepacking tours is like I've learned to budget myself and do all these like airline expenses, all this other planning stuff that most kids, like their parents, do stuff like that for them. And I've had to do it all on my own. And it's definitely made traveling a lot easier for me because I'm able to budget things out. I'm able to like figure out, oh, okay, so this is the cheapest way that I can fly down there realistically with my bike. This is like my budget for food. I already have this gear, so this is an expense that I am not going to have to pay for.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, it's again, that's a really great life skill that you're learning. You're being forced to. I mean, there's no one else that's going to do it for you, but you're very much in the exact same position I am, as a 40-year-old dude. It's like, that's how I live my life. It's I'm not like living to work, like I don't, work pays for stuff, and I like to go on trips. I like to experience the world on a bicycle. I like to get away and go experience nature and all that stuff. And that's how that's how I live my life. It's like, okay, you got to budget for it. Like, it's not just going to happen. No one's going to do it for you. You gotta figure it out. So in one way, that's really great that you're getting that at such a young age. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something that'll serve you forever.
Yeah. No, also like the skills that I've had to learn managing money, like my parents aren't able to fund any of my trips. Because we just financially can't afford it. But I have a job. I have GoFundMe's up for all the trips that I do so people can donate there. I make sure to also do a lot of like community outreach and volunteer as much as I can. So it's not like I'm just taking money and not helping other people. Like I try to educate people on bikes as often as I can. And I work with GRIT and other biking groups in Anchorage. And I make bike art and I sell that as well as a fundraiser. 80% of those proceeds go to my future bike trips, and then 20 goes back into making more bike art. So
cool. Yeah, and you actually donated some bike jewelry, bike art to my van drive. Trying to get
yes,
that
I
van,
did.
that mobile podcasting studio. I might drive it up to Alaska one day on the one
That would
road.
be super cool.
Oh man, I would absolutely. Alaska is definitely on my list. The only thing now I'll ask you, all I ever like you see videos of Alaska, they're always talking about the flies or the mosquitoes. I mean,
The mosquitoes, yeah,
yeah. How
definitely.
bad how bad
Uh,
are they?
I, so the type of mosquitoes that we have up here for like a more northern climate, and last year in Anchorage, usually we have like semi-bad mosquitoes, but like it was so hot. Like we broke so many records last year with it being hot, and there was there was no mosquitoes. There was a bunch of yellow jackets, which we typically don't have a lot of yellow jackets.
Mm.
But if you go further north, the closer you get to Prudhoe Bay, the more mosquitoes there are because the more like ponds. Yeah, when I was up north, close to Pump Station 5 for the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, this vehicle was parked on the road and had their engine still running, and you could see the mosquitoes, just a huge black swarm of mosquitoes around this car.
Because it was warm or because there was
Because
someone
it was
inside it?
warm.
Okay.
Because it was warm. And
Yeah.
the way that they see is like they can see warm, and that's how they find people or animals to prey on, is
Uh,
they can see the warmth radiating off of their bodies. So
wow. Yeah. That's the only thing that scares me about Alaska is, well, the grizzly bears. I mean, if you're gonna go out in wild places, you just need to be educated about wildlife and not be stupid. Um,
definitely.
you know, but the mosquitoes is one thing. It doesn't matter how educated you are. If you're yummy, they're gonna come and eat on you.
Yeah, well, luckily up here we don't have any of the diseases that are transmitted through mosquitoes. So it's just they bite you and you get a bump that itches for a week
Yeah.
and then it goes away.
All right.
Yeah, when I was little, someone told me if, like, because with a lot of things, if you eat them or if you touch them enough, like, you'll no longer have a reaction to them.
Right.
And I tried that with mosquitoes when I was like 10, and it didn't really work out too well for me.
I actually got poison ivy. So, do you know what poison ivy is? Do y'all have that?
We do not have that, but I do know what it is.
Okay. Yeah, so I got poison ivy so much as a kid. We had a creek in my backyard, and I was always playing in the creek, obviously, as a little boy. And I to this day, I can like touch poison ivy and poison oak, and I won't get it. So
Nice.
I don't know if that works for everybody. I'm not recommending that as medical advice, but hey, it worked for me.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the mosquito thing worked out super, super well, but I definitely don't get as irritated as a lot of other people do.
Right.
So I guess it worked out.
Well,
I don't know.
I noticed that too. We're kind of going off a tangent, but yeah, because I live in Texas, we have really bad mosquitoes, and I've getting bit a bunch. But like if people from other states that don't have as many come here, they seem to have like a much harder time with them than I do. So I don't know if it's that there's an immunity or I'm just kind of used to it. But
Yeah.
either way, all right. Well, you convinced me. I'll come to Alaska in my van.
You should. Alaska's super cool. Bring your daughter, bring your wife. They'll have fun. We could hang out. We could all go ride bikes.
Yeah, I like to ride bikes. Okay, so you're 16 years old. I presume you have 2 more years left of high school.
Yes, I do.
So I mean, I was really impressed to hear you say that I found who I am. I figured out who I am and what I want out of life and that kind of stuff, which is amazing. But how is that dictating your future? Like, what do you? Obviously, talking to you, I can tell. I know you got some goals. So what are you thinking? What are you working towards?
I would like to get an RN/BSN nursing degree and then eventually go to nurse practitioner school. I know a nurse in Alaska who actually works for 7 days straight, and then she takes 14 days off and goes and bikes in the lower 48.
Right.
And that's what I would like to do definitely for the first 4 or 5 years after I'm done with schooling. That sounds really amazing to me. I want to travel. I want to bike pack all around the world when I'm older. It's just really expensive.
Yeah. Kind of, but kind of not. I mean, there's a lot more expensive things you could do. I mean, with bike packing, you got the gear and you're camping.
Yeah, once you have the gear, it's just plane tickets.
Yeah.
And then eventually, hopefully starting a family when I'm in my 30s. I know this one guy who goes mountain biking with his 2-year-old, and she has a little seat on the top tube bar that she sits in. And I was like, I want to do that with my future kid if I have kids.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful. I love it. I love you. You're going to inspire well, I mean, heck, you are the next generation. I'm on my way out. You're like next up and coming.
Yeah. So,
have you found any other teenagers, girls or boys that are you've kind of connected with, that you both share this similar passion, that are, because I don't know. I mean, I know some high school kids that have been on a couple trips, but they're kind of like more mountain bikers, and maybe they'll go camp,
exactly.
But you're the only one I know.
All my friends that I go biking with and stuff, it's pretty much just mountain biking. I'm trying to get my boyfriend more into bike packing, which that's like my goal for the next coming summer. I'm planning to go out of state during spring break, but I really want to like focus on traveling more in Alaska because we don't have many roads, but we have enough that I haven't traveled yet that I would like to do. I would like to bike to McCarthy from Anchorage, but I'm like trying to get my boyfriend and some of my friends more into bike packing. So I'm hoping I can do the trip that we did to Eklutna with the GRIT program with my boyfriend and some of my other friends. So
is he open to the idea?
Yes. He got in an accident with his bike. He got hit by a car. He's okay. The bike has a dent, but it's cosmetic. It's not actually going to mess up the frame, but it did mess up his rack a lot. So I fixed his rack. I bought him some new bike bags, and I was like, we're going to do this. And he somewhat submitted and was like, yeah, we're going to do this.
You're determined. You're like, listen, I'm going to fix your bike. I'm going to get you the bags. I'm going to plan the trip. All you got to do is go.
Exactly. He's not too much into the idea of bike packing like on a highway system, but gravel roads or mountain biking bike packing, he's super, super interested in. Hopefully in the future, in a few years to come, we can go to Washington and do some bike packing there. I think that'd be a really good experience for him to have.
How far away is Washington from you? Do you drive it or fly it?
Fly it. It's like a 4-hour flight too.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It is a long flight.
Okay.
It takes a long time to drive down there. I'm the only one in my friend group who actually has my driver's license. So all my friends were like, yeah, we're going to go do all this mountain biking in the summer because you're going to be the only one with your driver's license.
Well, I guess you could just take them and drop them off somewhere and say, nope, we're bike packing. Sorry. Surprise.
You don't have any of the year, but that's okay.
Hey, so before you found out about bike packing, what were you into? Were you into were you doing sports or?
I did volleyball for a while, but I stopped doing that. In 6th grade, I was really not hanging out with the best group of kids, and I was living on a bad side of town, and I could tell everybody was like steering towards a path that I didn't want to go on. So I made the decision when I was about to go into 7th grade that I was going to go to an alternative school instead of my zoned school. One of the best decisions I've ever made. Definitely, like, all the kids that I was going to 6th grade with, they're sophomores now, and they're not doing super well. And a lot of them have either had abortions or have children or have had to drop out of school for other reasons or have drug addictions. So I'm really happy that I didn't go down that route and that I decided to switch to an alternative school. My alternative school brought me the GRIT program, and then Lael and Kate, and that brought all the biking stuff. And now I work at a bike shop, and I love my job, and I love my school, and I love biking. So really, like, making that switch to go to a different school has opened up so many more doors for me that would have never been opened.
Man, you need to like do some public speaking or something. I mean, you and yourself are inspirational. I mean, Lael is, but Lael isn't 14 or 16, you know, I mean, to be your age and to have the wisdom and be able to like look at the direction your life is heading, make a conscious decision to change it. Like, I'm going to make a change. And now you're seeing how that's benefited you. You're reaping the benefits, and you can see that. And that's going to inform the rest of your life. You know, I mean, that's powerful stuff. It took me, I had a similar story to yours, except for I was a lot older. And I did go down a bad path, you know, and I was just not productive or doing anything worthwhile. And it, you know, I had to make some, you know, quit the friends, move, you know, just stop, you know, just everything, and just flip a switch. And that's actually when I got into riding bikes. It started with mountain biking for me, and that kind of started my progression towards bike packing and just a better lifestyle, you know. But I was a lot older than you were.
Yeah, no, eventually I'd like to write a book. Like, I've worked on some stories that I'd like to have in the book. Like, one of my older brothers passed away last year in a car accident, and I wrote a lot about that because that was just a way that I was able to cope with it.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's all good. But like, that really kind of opened up a door for me, and I was like, you know, like, I want to tell people my story because I have a very unusual story, and it's gonna bring hope for people that were in a similar situation, and they know, like, do not give up. There is a way out. Like, you're not gonna be stuck in that life forever.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. Maybe you could even it would be neat. I'd like to see, I mean, you know, you do you, but just a recommendation. I'd love to see you write some articles, you know, for bikepacking.com, or I'd publish it on my website, or, you know, but I mean, you trip reports, what you learned, you know, how it's helped you to grow and define who you are as a person. Like, I mean, that's freaking awesome.
Yeah. I would love to write for Bikepacking magazine, but it's like, I don't know how to contact any of those people.
I do. I'll hook you up.
Hook me up. If you want me to write stuff for you, just tell me what you have an idea of. And I also really enjoy writing. It's something that I have a passion about. I love doing it in school. I love especially writing about bike stuff.
Yeah.
I've written for a few local magazines in Alaska as well. And for Revelate Designs too. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll chat. I'll chat some more with you on the Instagrams. But I mean, you have you know, it's like everybody else saw your potential after GRIT, and they rallied around you and supported you and got you the gear and some money and like set you off on this journey. And as a result, you've learned a lot, you know, and they're important life skills. I mean, it's not just riding your bike, it's learning how to manage money and hold a job and manage friends and family and all the responsibilities that you deal with in life. I mean, it's just life, you know, like if you want to go ride your bike, that's cool, but you got to do all the other things too. And so hearing it from somebody who's so young and be able to articulate that so well I think it's really neat. So we'll definitely have to do something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So I know you have to go. You're actually at your bike shop right now, taking a lunch break, and yeah, we're doing a little podcast real quick. But before we go, do you have any advice for other kids, boys, girls, just your age that, yeah, to get in there or get into the sport and get outside and go explore it?
Be safe. Don't be scared. Being scared, I've had so many bad falls being scared. Watch out for gravel, because that's how I got my concussion. I don't have it right now, but I got a concussion a few months ago because of gravel. Make sure you have good tread on your tires.
Were you wearing a helmet?
Yes, I was wearing a helmet. It actually cracked my helmet coast all the way in half.
Yeah. Well, that's a good message too.
Yes, definitely. I be safe the best you can. I wasn't doing anything stupid. I just got caught in gravel and fell off my bike. If you get a concussion, don't try to get up. I did that and I ended up hitting my head again.
Oh, yeah.
And if you think you have a concussion, go to the hospital, because I didn't think I had a concussion and then I was forced to go to the hospital.
Yikes.
But on a more serious note, don't be afraid. Be yourself. If you don't have the gear right now, work towards getting the gear. There's plenty of people out there that want to help you.
Absolutely.
And don't give up. It gets tough sometimes. When I was biking the Pacific Coast, it rained for 2.5 weeks.
Wow.
Constantly, night and day. It's a part of life, and it's type 2 fun. You'll look at it in the future and you'll actually see how fun it actually was and how you wish you were still out there. So
what do you love about bikepacking? What is it about it that makes you want to keep pursuing it and put up with the long days and all the hard things? Like, what makes it worth it?
The experiences with the wildlife and the views and the weather that you get to see, and just it's like taking you out of the world that you're in and putting you in a different world where it's just, you don't have to stress about financials, you don't have to stress about school, you don't have to stress about work. It's just you, your bike in the road, or you, your bike in the gravel, you, your bike in the trail.
Yeah, I couldn't say it any better than that. That's exactly right. Well, if people want to follow along, you mentioned that people can support you on GoFundMe's and you have jewelry that you sell and other stuff. So do you want to plug a couple of those things so people can follow you and support you?
Yeah, I would say the easiest way to follow those things is to follow me on Instagram, because I post all of those things online. Also, any future trip suggestions, send me your suggestions. I'm always looking for trips that I can do. The Arizona trip, actually, Lael sent that to me, and she's like, "You got to do this. It's so much fun. You're gonna have a blast."
Awesome.
You have any small or large trip ideas, please just send them to my Instagram, and it's kittencat484. Yes, I know. Very weird Instagram handle. I created it when I was a little kid, and I'm like, people know me by this now, so I don't think I can change it. But
I know. We get locked in on those sometimes.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I'm truly impressed by you. I'm glad that you're out there. I'm inspired by you, and I'm hopeful for my daughters too. You're like getting me stoked. I'd love obviously to have my kids going and doing this kind of stuff, but because they want to. Like, I love the passion that is coming from a natural place inside of you. And you can't buy that. That's awesome. And I hope we talk some more. Definitely.
Yes. No, I'm so thankful for this experience. I have never done anything like this before, but thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Well, we'll definitely do it again. I want to keep up with everything you got going on. So follow her on Instagram and we'll have her back on sometime in the future. Thanks.